Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the broadcast. Well, some good news to share with you guys today regarding Donald Trump's fourth indictment. Now, the Democrats thought they had this indictment in the bag, so to speak. However, they are now panicking over a move that was made by Mark Meadows. And I personally feel that Donald Trump is going to follow because this particular move can get the entire indictment completely and utterly dismissed. That is my hope either way, and I think that could be how it ends up if it does go to the Supreme Court. But let's dive into what on earth is going on. Take a look at this article on breitbartnews.com, and this is just going to give you a background of the indictment itself. I know most of you may already know this, so I'm really going to skim through it. But Breitbart, Georgia indictment charges Trump, lawyers, aides for speech violations and nationwide conspiracy. The 98-page and 41-count indictment handed down by a Fulton County, Georgia grand jury on Monday evening charges former President Donald J. Trump, his lawyers, and his campaign aides with multiple crimes for a nationwide challenge to the 2020 vote. The indictment was released close to midnight on Monday after a rushed grand jury process that took just one day to consider a complicated set of allegations involving 19 defendants, including the president, across a wide array of states and jurisdictions. Now, here are some of the people that were indicted with him. You can see you've got Rudy Giuliani here. You've got James Schaefer. You've got Robert David there. And if you scroll down, there's Susan Powell on there as well. So lots of names that you could see, but 19 other people have been indicted with the president on this particular report. Now, what's interesting is what happened around this indictment, and I'm just going to brief on this part. The indictment came just hours after a document was prematurely posted on the Fulton County Court's website listing nearly 40 counts. The document was deleted, and officials claimed that it was a fictitious document, a claim many observers later contested. So in other words, before they fully decided on the case, the grand jury there, the information was leaked out before they even came to a conclusion. But either way, they said that's a fictitious document, and then the new report came out to be basically the exact same thing. So anyway, this is the indictment against Donald J. Trump. 19 people are with him on that, and there's about 41 counts. But to give you a little bit more information on what's going on with this indictment and how it potentially could be dismissed, I found this article on redstate.com that I want to hone in on. Take a look, and this is on redstate.com. Mark Meadows files motion that could be an out in Georgia for Trump and multiple defendants. The article goes on to state that on Tuesday evening, news broke that Mark Meadows, one of the defendants and Trump's former chief of staff, has filed a motion of removal in an attempt to get the charges out of Georgia and into a federal court. Now, obviously, they do not want the charges there in Fulton County in Georgia because there's a lot of liberalism in that area. So this is a great move on their part. But here's the actual Mark Meadows document here, for the state of Georgia, his request here. And here's what it states. Notice of removal. Defendant Mark Meadows, former chief of staff to the President of the United States, removes this proceeding from the Fulton County Superior Court insofar as it charges Mr. Meadows in 2 counts of the 41-count indictment of the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of Georgia. Now, it goes on to state that Mr. Meadows has the right to remove this matter. The conduct giving rise to the charges in the indictment all occurred during his tenure and as part of his service as chief of staff. In these circumstances, federal law provides for prompt removal of a criminal prosecution commenced in a state court against or directed to a federal official in an official or individual capacity for or relating to any act under color of his office. The removal of the statute protects the federal government from the interference with its operations that would ensue where a state able, for example, to arrest or bring a trial in a Senate court for an alleged offense against the law of the state, officers and agents of the federal government acting within the scope of their authority. And then it goes on to state this, and this is a very powerful point here. Nothing Mr. Meadows is alleged in the indictment to have done is criminal, per se, arranging Oval Office meetings, contacting state officials on the president's behalf, visiting a state government building, and setting up a phone call for the president, one would expect a chief of staff of the president of the United States to do these sort of things. It is, after all, his job, right? And they have far less to do with the interest of state law than, for example, murder charges that have been successfully removed. This is precisely the kind of state interference in a federal official's duty that the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution prohibits and that the removal statute shields against. And he's absolutely right. This is prohibited. This is what he's supposed to do as part of his job. And here we have Georgia trying to go after him for doing his job at a federal level. But he goes on. Therefore, Mr. Meadows intends to file a motion to dismiss the indictment pursuant to Rule 12 of the Federal Rules of the Criminal Procedure as soon as feasible. Mr. Meadows respectfully request that the court order an evidentiary hearing to be held promptly and dispose of the prosecution as justice shall require. A huge, big, fat amen and amen and amen to that. Now, this is Mark Meadows filing it. I believe Donald Trump is going to follow that suit and say, hey, if a federal official gets charged with a state crime, right, that relates to that federal official's actual job duties, then you can get the case dismissed. That is what this whole thing is about. In fact, I love what Leslie Gordon had to say about it, and she's really got a good assessment here. So I'm going to bring this up because I think this really hones it in together. And here's what she's saying regarding Mark Meadows' filing that we just read. She goes, as predicted, there will be removal motions from likely all of the defendants who were federal officials at the time of the acts, right? In other words, they're all going to follow suit. This is because, in general, the states cannot use state law against federal officials for things that they did as feds. Federalism doesn't work otherwise. And this is exactly why the entire fourth indictment of Donald J. Trump is just bogus, because they're going after people for doing their job. But she goes on to state that this is an important part of the constitutional law. It's found in one of the first cases in the first year law student study, McCulloch versus MD, decided in 1819. A holding of the case is that state actions cannot bind the federal government from setting the stage for immunity for federal officers, she goes on, which means that experienced state prosecutors should know that there are significant legal problems with indicting any federal officials under state law. We all learned this principle the very first year of law school. It's an important feature of our constitutional system. It divides power between the federal government and the state government, which sets them a bit at odds with one another and preserves local issues for local elected officials. It's part of liberty's design of our federal republic. This is absolutely, absolutely huge. And to kind of put it in a summed up way, just to like reiterate, I believe others are going to follow, including Donald J. Trump. But in a nutshell, if a federal official gets charged, right, with a state crime that relates to that federal official's job duties, then you can get the case dismissed. It's a state trying to prosecute federal officials for simply doing their job. Like all other indictments on Donald J. Trump, this is just a bogus indictment on top of bogus indictment. So this is some good news, I believe, for all of us. And hopefully we can get some resolution on this. I hope that the thing gets dropped. Not that I'm saying it will. It just really depends on who the judge is and who handles it. Nobody knows the future. But either way, keep Donald Trump and all those who are being prosecuted by the Biden administration just for simply being on the other side of the political offense. Other side of the other political side. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. But he's going after and weaponizing these DAs. He's weaponizing the FBI. He's weaponizing all this all these departments against his political enemies and those who are politically different from him. And Donald Trump is just at the very top of that. So please keep them all in your prayers. With that, I want to remind you, get to restrictedrepublic.com. I'm going to be dropping, by the way, a very huge story today. And the story is titled this: Russia issues a stark warning to Americans and millions of people could die. You're going to want to hear this warning. Unfortunately, I'm not posting it here on YouTube. There's lots of censorship and stuff going on here. I'm going to be posting it today on Restricted Republic, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. You want to check out Restricted Republic, go to restrictedrepublic.com, use the coupon code Lisa and number 5 to get it for $5 per month. Anyhow, I love all of you. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.